never to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now. And all I could taste is this moment, and all I can breathe is your life. And sooner or later it's over, I just don't wanna miss you tonight. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am. And you can't fight the tears that ain't coming, all the moment of truth in your lies. When everything feels like the movies, yeah, you bleed just to know you're alive. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
You guys like those manual fades I do of Spotify of fading the music out? I thought that was a good song. We needed to do the 90s. We still got, I think, we haven't done the 60s yet, so we're going to start going real far back. But I feel like that song set the mood for this blog post quite well. The worst year of A Song of Ice and Fire continues. I mean, George R. R. Martin, his blog post, which I'll read and we'll talk about it, I feel like it was a huge shock to everybody on social media, even YouTube channels. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is what George has been basically saying for like years now. Like since I have been in the community on YouTube for like the last like 3 years, my own channel, it feels literally the same. It's just George just blatantly said what, was all on our minds already. So let's read the blog post. I want to point out before we get into it and before I talk about it, I do want to say, I wish nothing but the best for George, his happiness, all of that stuff. Anything that we say in this stream, hopefully we keep it respectful in terms of chat and things like that. All that stuff. I am going to be a little bit critical in this, and some people might not like that. So yeah, but hi everybody in chat. I'll get to chat here in a little bit. I want to get through the blog post, and then we'll kind of talk. So on May 28th at 8:14 a.m., George R. R. Martin put this on his blog post. So he was announcing some things as well for a friend that he had died and some of the things that he's working on, but he has a big, long rant. He says, I know, some of you will just be pissed off by this, as you are by everything I announce here that is not about Westeros or the Winds of Winter. You have given up on me or on the book. I will never finish Winds. If I do, I will never finish A Dream of Spring. If I do, it won't be any good. I ought to get some other writer to pinch hit for me. I'm going to die soon anyway because I am so old. I lost all interest in A Song of Ice and Fire decades ago, and I don't give a shit about writing any longer. I just sit around and spend my money. I edit the wildcard books too, but you hate wildcards. You may hate everything else I have ever written. The Hugo winners and Hugo losers. He goes on to say a bunch of stuff about some of the stuff he's worked on. And then we get to kind of the end of it, and he says, you don't care about any of those I know. You don't care about anything but the winds of winter. You've told me so often enough. He says then that he cares about the other projects he is working on, and that he also says, and I care about Westeros and Winds as well. The Starks, and he just lists off a bunch of different characters and stuff like that. And he says, more than you can ever imagine. Which, again, it's sad that George has to come out and say that he cares about his work, that he cares about Winds of Winter, that he cares about his characters. It's fairly obvious. Like the way George talks about A Song of Ice and Fire, some of the characters, whenever he's at panels, asks questions, he has a deep care for his work. If you doubted that, look at his response to House of the Dragon. You know, look at how passionate he was about the adaptation of his work. It was pretty obvious to anybody with eyes, with ears, that knows George cares about his work. That was never the concern. And so it's sad that George has to say that because he feels like the community doesn't believe that he cares about these things. And so that's the sad part of it. And again, this is a lot of what I think George has felt since I've made YouTube videos. Is George is sad, he's frustrated, whether that's on progress of Winds of Winter, of colleagues that are passing away, fans that troll him, like every single post that he puts on social media, it's where is Winds of Winter, all that stuff. You know, that is what I think is on his mind. And it's just been a buildup of frustrations and things of that nature. And I think the one thing that most people were not really that aware of, that I was like, obviously George sees this stuff, is how much attention does George pay attention to creators? Like, not like me, for instance. I'm too small to reach someone like George R. R. Martin, who doesn't like dive into all these different channels. But the more popular channels, you know, your channels like Talking Thrones, like Carmine and Preston Jacobs, and, you know, the bigger channels that cover him specifically, and the Winds of Winter and stuff like that. Does he like watch those things? And it's very clear he did. And I almost think that it was prompted basically because of Carmine and Preston Jacobs' latest video. Like, they talked about a specific part in here, and they've talked about it numerous times, about somebody else writing the story. They made a video about that, I think, maybe like a week or two before this blog post came out. If I'm not 100% sure on that. I know, I remember seeing it. I don't remember how close it was to this blog post coming out. And you just look at that frustration. And I think George is kind of seeing what we all kind of think, right? I've talked about this. We've all talked about this in my community, is that I am somebody that believes Winds of Winter could be finished and we could see it, but I don't think Dream of Spring is going to come out at this point. I've lost faith in that based upon George's progress in Winds of Winter and other things. And so George is kind of just taking a group of everybody else's opinions and putting it in this blog post. And it is kind of like George's probably inner monologue and some of his, I don't know, I don't want to say self-pity, but it kind of comes off that way, which, again, George has every right to be upset by these things. But like I put on my social media, I on X, Twitter, aka, like, I feel bad for George that he feels this way, and it feels like he's in a very dark place. I feel bad for him. I want him to be happy. I want him to do all these things, but at the same time, people have the right to talk about Winds of Winter and all of those things. I don't think people have, well, the right is kind of a weird one, but I don't think people should be trolling George and attacking him, all those things. Like that's just out of pocket. That shouldn't be happening, all that stuff. But people have the right to speculate on Winds of Winter and its completion, to question if it's going to be done, or question if we should have another writer, because at this point there's no end in sight with Winds of Winter. And George has not shown any signs it's even close, that he's even written anything on Winds of Winter within this year or the last year, maybe even the year before that. And there's no progress updates on any of his writing. Like any writing he's doing in A Song of Ice and Fire. There's no Dunk and Egg progress. There's no Fire and Blood Part 2 progress, we've been told. No Winds of Winter progress, we've been told. So, of course, you're going to get this criticism. People are very passionate about your world. I'm one of those people. And so, of course, people are going to want to see your world. The fact that it's been over half of my lifetime and you have yet to get the next installment of your series and people still care this much. People still go to the YouTube channels to hear about this stuff. Just tells you how passionate your fan base is and how much people want to see Winds of Winter. So of course we're going to have their opinions on those things and are worried about a story that they want to see the end of. Of course people are going to be worried about that. So that's kind of my spiel. That's how I feel on this. This isn't new information. This is very old information that really has been on George's mind for, like, I've speculated on this stuff for years. Like, George has not been in the best place for a good amount of time now. It's kind of how I felt on Winds of Winter specifically. Go back to every post that he talks about, oh, Winds of Winter, I'm working on it, or he just has it as a footnote to just reference, and he seems frustrated by it. So what I would say to George is, if you want the criticism to stop, if you want people to get off your ass a little bit, make Winds of Winter your main priority. You know, don't take on all these small mini projects where maybe they're not taking up a bulk amount of his time, but they're taking up all these different things are taking up little bits of time that add up to a lot. You know, make Winds of Winter your prime thing you're working on. And get the book done. Then people won't be on your case as much. You know, if the book is bad, which I highly doubt it will be, George R. R. Martin is just a great writer. I highly doubt if we get Winds of Winter, it'll be bad. But even if it is bad, people will just say, oh, it was a bad book. Oh, well, right? And again, there will be people that instantly will be like, where's Dream of Spring? All that kind of stuff. But a way to get around this criticism is to just finish the series. I know that's a tall task and it's not as simple as that, but there is that. The other thing, which I discussed a little bit on social media, and then it just kind of trying to talk to people on social media is just it's not a good idea, especially on X, a bad platform. Or just say that you can't finish the series and just leave it at that. People will be off your case. There's no more speculation, all that type of stuff. And so George is kind of in this limbo where he's not admitting that he can't finish it, but he's also doesn't seem like he's putting his main focus to finishing the series. And that's where so much of the criticism comes from, is there's no clarity. There's no direction of the future of the series. So it kind of boils down to me the same idea of like Dunk and Egg, where there's like no clarity on the show, like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, no trailer, nothing coming out about the show, gets pushed back. It's kind of like the same idea. Like there's no transparency, it feels like, in terms of like, where are we with Winds of Winter? Where are we with George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Firework? It just kind of, we're left in the dark. There's been very little updates or progress on the book since I have been in the community for like the last 3.5 years. Since I've been on YouTube, there's been very little in terms of any information regarding Winds of Winter, outside of George saying he's working on it. We had that one thing where he kind of estimated where he was pages wise. That's about it. So that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. I do feel bad for George, of course, and I hate that he has to go through some of the things that come with being famous. But yeah, let me see what chat's got to say. Hi Matthew, how are you? I am also well. Glad a lot of you guys seem to like the opening song. I kind of figured a lot of you would. It's one of the most recognized songs. It's a great song, of course. You guys will have to get me with recommendations for what you guys want to see for the next stream. We're going to be doing 60s, so I don't really know like any 60s songs really that come to mind. So if you have any 60s songs, let me know. Hi Dakota, how are you? I love George R. R. Martin, but it did seem a bit self-pitying. Like, imagine having fans still obsessed with your series 14 years after the last book. Yeah, I do agree to an extent, James. I think that George just is in a bad place right now. I think he's in a bad place, and I don't know. I kind of gave my 2 cents on it, but I definitely think that I understand your stance on that. And I will say, like, I hope that George uses all of this as motivation to complete the series. Gotta love that we have some nostalgia for JC. Um, it was a very pouty, not a blog. Yeah, it was not a happy one. It seems like he's going off on questions that weren't even asked, and that's the point. It's all been marinating for a long time. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I personally don't think anybody should write a Song of Ice and Fire outside of George. If George doesn't finish the series, nobody else should, because at that point it becomes fan fiction to me. It becomes like, again, respect to Preston Jacobs for doing his fan fiction, but to me, it'll never be like canon. It's never like, oh yeah, this is what George wanted the series to be. We'll always have to speculate on that. Even if George was to give the notes to somebody else, it's not George himself. Like, the fine details, all these mini plots, like, it's not from George specifically, it's from somebody else. So, and that's not to discount Preston Jacobs. I want to make that clear. I know he does a ton of great work on that, but that's just kind of my stance on fan fictions specifically. You guys have talked a lot about First Law, so I might have to get into that. I vote 1830s. Oh boy. I'm reading Conan, then I'm moving on to rereading The Witcher. I've only read one Witcher book, and it was definitely out of order. So I do want to give that a try, though. I have a bit more free time. I've been kind of reading the Dark Rendezvous book for, like, the Yoda Count Dooku Star Wars book, and it's been good so far. But I don't know. It wasn't as good as the Darth Maul, like, Shadowhunter book I read, but it's been good. I'm a 90s kid, and I approve of your playlist, Grease. The 90s is also when we had the most of Song of Ice and Fire books in one decade. Yeah. Back in the 90s, the first 3 books, and it's kind of interesting you bring that up because today I recorded the video for Did Dance and Feast Doom the series, and I referenced a lot of things about the first 3 books. And one of those is, like, yeah, the first 3 books all came in. Like, there was maybe like a 2-year span in between each book. And then by the time you get to book 4 and 5, it was like a massive difference. I really hate when YouTube does not let me scroll through chat correctly, but yeah. If something makes me mad, I leave it behind or do something that doesn't make me mad. Yeah. Like, for instance, like, for me, I've been very mad with House of the Dragon, so I don't really make content on it, and I'm not going to go as, like, hard or be as invested for the next season, but yeah. Also, hi guys, there's a lot of you coming in here, fresh faces, old faces. Hello to everybody. He finally read the comments. I'll be honest, little brownie, I think he's probably been reading comments, videos for years now. I just think that it finally boiled over. Hi, Jurgen. To be fair, this is crap people have been saying over and over for years, so it makes sense you'd be tired of it. Yeah, I mean, this is conversation we've had for years. Like, this isn't new conversation. Like, we've been having the same conversations over and over and over again for, what, 13, 14 years? Like, the same stuff over and over again. Eventually, I think it probably got to him. I did find that funny, even when I was reading it my first time. Reading the Dany and Daenerys line when George is talking about the characters he cares about was funny. Hi, Crab. How are you? George isn't wrong. I don't particularly care about most of his other works outside of Winds. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Because George was he was an author way before A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Like, unfortunately for George, his most popular work happened when he was much older than in life, right? Like, and this is something that I think is really relevant. If A Song of Ice and Fire had been written when George was like 30 or 40, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like, it'd just be a completely different conversation, but that's just not the case. And unfortunately, George got famous and he got wealth and all of those things that come with that much later in life. And so it's unfortunately, that's part of it, is that most people, I'd say like a good 90% of people, maybe more, don't care about anything else he's working on. And that's just a sad reality. And especially, for George, as a writer, he cares about all of his works, not just A Song of Ice and Fire like we do. That's just the unfortunate part. It's a vocal group of haters. I feel like every part of the A Song of Ice and Fire community I've interacted with is very kind to him. Yeah, I mean, he is the author of the story we all care about. And so a certain amount of respect needs to go to him because of that. I think that social media always has very very loud people, and they're usually on both sides of the fence. There isn't a lot of the people that are kind of just in the middle ground. The more like actual main percentage of people that really care about George and want him to do well and all these things. But yeah, and I won't shy away. I've had my fair criticism of George that I think is justified of saying, because you have all these things where, yes, George, all of these complaints you have a right to say, but all of these complaints stem from, you're not putting Winds of Winter as your main focus to try and finish your story that so many people care about, the story that made you famous, the story that got you wealth, the story that bulk majority of the people that follow you want to see finished. So I wish you would listen to our positive comments. Again, as a YouTube creator, I think, JC, I know you're in chat, you can probably relate to this as well. If you get 10 comments and 9 of them are positive and one of them is really negative, the one that is really negative will always stick in your mind more. I am more likely to respond to a negative comment. Well, not now. I would have said in the first year or two of having this channel, the odds are if you said a negative comment, I was more likely to respond to that than somebody saying like a positive comment, right? That's kind of been switched now. I just block. If somebody posts something that is like derogatory towards me, the community, or things that I view as just like not acceptable, I just block you. You just, your ability to comment just gone on the channel, and I just forget about you. But you're going to, that comment is going to stick out more than the other good comments. The same idea with George, just on a larger scale, much larger scale. I love that we already have the theories about Dany and Daenerys. I honestly agree with Red Team Review's take on this. George kind of brought this upon himself. I mean, that's what I pretty much said, Ghost. I know I'm pretty far behind in comments, but yeah, I think that there's two ways of looking at it. Like, from George's point of view, I understand why he is upset by all these things. But from a, like my point of view, your guys' point of view, it's been 14, 13 years. Of course, there's going to be criticism, and there is real criticism to have. So yeah, I feel like I'm kind of going in circles, which is why I felt like this topic didn't need to be a video, because it's the same thing I've talked about over and over and over again. So I felt like a stream just freshened it up a little bit. I like doing streams for the blog updates, unless they're like big, huge things, because it's not worth having a video for. It's not worth going through editing all this stuff. That's stuff I've already talked about. People being annoyed is one thing. People being dicks is another thing. Agreed. Like, people that just spam George R. Martin with Winds of Winter, troll comments, all that stuff. That's just not acceptable. Agreed. I do think that Preston and Carmine's episode, podcast, however you want to say it, I think it did have an effect. I think George directly saw that. Now, I don't know if that is what tipped George to make this blog post, but it's something that George definitely saw. It is. I don't know if George saw the title, watched a portion of it, whatever, but it's something he saw. Matt, and I agree with your sentiment. I think people have reason to be upset with George because of the way he's kind of been very dismissive towards fans in terms of his Winds of Winter progress. I totally understand your thought process there. I'd like if he was totally honest with the problems he's having with writing, like characters' ages, too many plots. Yeah, agreed, James. I always say, I think the one thing I wish we had more in today's world is transparency. People are just not transparent with what's going on, whether that's House of the Dragon, whether that's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in the show, whether that's George R. R. Martin and maybe his struggles, issues. All of that is just left to speculation, and that's why you have like myself, other channels that talk about some of these things, like trying to speculate at what is the problem, like why are we getting to this point where it's been 14 years or 13 years, however long it's been. The garden is gardening, yes. I do wish he would do a yearly update at least, saying like, all right, I finished up this character's point of view. I'm struggling with this one now. IDK, maybe that's a bad idea. No, I think that's a great idea. You know, I think he'd still get pushback, of course, like people saying, oh, why isn't the book done? And why did you only get this done? But it would like help to give just some, I don't know, clarity to what he's like doing, because there has been, in my opinion, since this YouTube channel has started, I think there's been very little actual new work that George has done on the story. I mean, more, you know, professional people in terms of knowing George R. R. Martin, being in this community for longer, they have seen when George R. R. Martin is writing. George gives updates. George does say, oh, I got a Cersei chapter done or two, or I got through this plot line. Like, there used to be, like what you're talking about, there used to be that, like, more closer to when Dance of the Dragons finished. In the early first half of this gap that we had, there was a lot more stuff like that. And because there's been an absence of that through the last, like, 4 or 5 years, it's led many, like myself, to believe George hasn't done a whole lot of new writing. Maybe he's done a lot of, like, going back over stuff he's already written, but I would say he's not written a whole lot. It's a bad cycle. He doesn't write. People want the book. That puts pressure on him, which makes him not write, and so on and so forth. Agreed. Agreed, Violet. I think it's a perfect way of just looking at it. You're looking at someone right now, George R. R. Martin, that does not appear to be writing all that much. You have a book that is one of the most anticipated of all time. It would, if it was finished and released, I guarantee you would be one of the highest selling books probably of all time. And that's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure to be on George. And he's just, you know, I don't know. That's all I'll say. Rather have a page of George R. R. Martin's notes than another author finish the series. Agreed. If people really cared about the story, they wouldn't try to tear him down, because how would that help him? Agreed. Like publicly, you know, insulting him and trolling him, all that stuff, that doesn't help, right? I think that I think criticism, like the criticism I give him, like people in the chat have given him, like other channels have given him, there should be for motivation. Like my goal is that by my criticisms of him, that it's going to motivate him to finish the book. Prove me wrong. Like, finish the series. Prove me wrong. Prove everybody wrong. Like, that should be how it should be. Hi, Zeno. How are you? To give up on the story that fans love and has resulted in you becoming rich is kind of disrespectful, and I feel the fandom should move on. He has no respect for you. Why return the favor? So, my only response to that, Dakota, is he hasn't given up on the story. Like that's what he said. Like he still says he cares about it and he's working on it. But I would be a lot more, like, I would respect him much more if he came out and said he just can't finish it and that's just how it's going to be, than the constant just kind of like passive aggressive, I'm working on it, but he's not actually working on it. I don't know. I know he's obviously lied about how much he's written over all the years, but I'm wondering if he was honest about it, how much backlash would he get? I mean, I would be curious to see, like, he's told us what he has written. And if that is accurate, it would lead you to believe he has maybe the last third of the book to write, which we don't know how that actually adds up. Is it the last third of all of our POVs? Doesn't seem to be the case, because George seems to have written a lot more for certain plot lines, like Cersei's more than likely, probably like the Riverland plot lines, maybe Young Griff's plot line. Like, he's written, it seems like George has written through a lot of the point of views, but other point of views he has not really gotten that far. So like a third of that could mean entire plot lines. It could mean a number of things. So the problem with that becomes, well, okay, let's say he's written an entire Cersei plot line, but now let's say that when he's writing Tyrion's plot line, he goes, wait, this doesn't make sense now. I need to go back and rewrite something in Cersei's plotline. So that's where I think you run into the issue, because George R. R. Martin doesn't have everything planned out to the exact detail. it becomes difficult because with his gardening style, he may write something and then have to completely rewrite something else. Like, for instance, me and JC a while ago talked about Arya's Winds of Winter sample chapter. That's a chapter likely that will be almost completely rewritten because it sounds more like a chapter that would be like a 5-year time skip. Like Arya seems to be older in that than where she actually is right now. And so a lot of that will probably be rewritten. It's the same idea you could see all throughout Winds of Winter with George right now and how he's writing it. I agree, Maz, though, on your sentiment. I understand him not feeling like he has to explain himself to anyone, but transparency is always good. I totally agree, Grease. Yeah, like transparency, in my opinion, almost is never a bad thing. Just telling people where you are with something alleviates a lot of pressure. It alleviates a lot of like what's going on, like people being confused, people wondering about the unknown. It makes it a lot more clear where he is. You might not like what he says if he's transparent, but at least you know like this is what's going on. I'm 23. It'll be wild if Winds of Winter doesn't come out until I'm 30. Xeno, it could be possible. I mean, I started this channel when I was 22, 21, somewhere around there. I think it was 22 though, and I'm 25 now. So I thought it would be out by now. Like, I don't know. Yeah, if it's 30 when I come out, that's gonna be crazy. Like, this is what genuinely worries me. Like, if I get through my entire reread of the entire series, like if I get through Storm of Swords and then Feast and Dance, and then say I then were like, well, I expected Winds to be out by now because this is a, almost a decade long project almost. Do I read Fire and Blood for the reread? Do I read, like, that's what I'm like wondering. I'm like, there's no way by the time I get done with the reread that Winds, or at least a portion of it, is not out. The only thing I agree with him on this post is stop wondering when he is going to die. Like, that's just not a good thing to do. Like, I agree to disagree. I think people saying, "Oh yeah, he's going to die," like that's out of pocket. But let's be realistic here. Factoring in George's age is important to understanding, can we actually get a Dream of Spring? Like, it's just a fact that your body, your mind breaks down the older you get. It doesn't reverse. Things only get worse. It becomes harder to work 6 to 7 hours a day because your body just can't do it. Your mind cannot do it, usually. Like, there are people that are super great health, and I hope George lives forever, but that's not realistic. I'm somebody that likes to try and be very realistic, and that's just not the case. And yeah, again, I think George is also, very frustrated, not worried, very frustrated because I think George, probably his backup plan was, well, okay, if I can't finish the series, which I don't think necessarily, I mean, I think now it's definitely on his mind, but maybe back when House of the Dragon was coming out, like, this could help with his legacy. And, the way House of the Dragon is going, Game of Thrones, the way it went, his legacy is not exactly going that great. Like, the shows are not going to be a great reflection of his work. Has anyone else been doing this since 2012? I am not one of those people. I would say I've been waiting for Winds of Winter since like probably around the time Fire and Blood came out. I get George R. R. Martin being upset that people don't care about his other works he is passionate about, but 99% of his fans don't care about those and should be doing all he can to make them happy. I agree. Like let's use my channel as kind of a way that I can go about the way George is feeling. The thing I love the most, like the thing I enjoyed and I was most proud of on this channel, and still am, is my reread series. I love doing the reread series. It helps me have a better understanding of the books, all that kind of stuff. But with that being said, I know most of my community does not care about the rereads. That is not why they're subscribed to my channel. They don't care. And that's something I've just been like, Yeah, that's fine. It's not for everybody. People don't want to listen to a reread of a series that may never be finished, and it's been how many years since the last book came out? I totally get that. It's not a series for those people. It's a series for me, myself, and for other people that just want to come along on the journey. And so for George, it's the same kind of idea. Like for me, my channel, you guys usually want Winds of Winter related content, whether that's theories, whether that's characters, whether that's updates on the series, whether it's most of what you guys want is related to Winds of Winter. So I try to cater to you guys. I try to give you at least one video a week that is at least in that ballpark to satisfy those people. George doesn't really do that. George wants everyone to care about all these other projects that people just don't care about. Unfortunately, I love George R. R. Martin, right? His writing and stuff has helped me through a lot of bad times in my life, but I just don't care about some of his other work. So, agreed. I agree. I just wish he'd be more transparent about its status, like he did with the dance all those years ago. That'd go a long way towards building good will with his fans. Agreed. I agree, George. I feel like we've kind of talked about that a lot in this stream, but yeah. Nah, if I'm 30 and the book doesn't come out by then it's all over at that point. Yeah, I mean, if you're, what, how old you say? You say we're 23, I believe. 7 years from now and the book's still not out. I mean, what's George going to be in? His 80s at that point? Yeah, at that point, the series is just not finishing. George has writer's block. That and the fact... Okay, YouTube. I was reading that. Let me go back up. Oh God, I'm so far behind in chat. I'm so far behind in chat. Also, I don't know if we got disconnected there for a little while. I don't know. Holy cow, I'm so far behind. I've lost where I was reading with JC's comment, but well, we're gonna continue off. It does rub me the wrong way a bit when a creator complains about having an active fan base who are deeply invested in their work come across as tone deaf, to be honest. Wait, hold on. Does I'm getting a little stuck on this one, George. But yeah, I mean, having a good fan base and things like that is something that takes a lot of work to do. So yeah, I think people that take that for granted, not necessarily a good thing. It's okay, Grease. I'll cause the drama on Twitter, and you can get blamed by proxy. That's fine. I mainly troll on Twitter or X, so. Grease, JC, Ricky. Interesting power rankings, Dakota. Interesting power rankings. That's another thing. He's massive in AC creative medium. Maybe people would kill to be as massive as him, and they'd never let it go to 14 years without a book. It's a good point, right? There's a lot of writers that would love to be in George R. R. Martin's situation. It's something that George worked very hard to get to. So, you know, again, it just comes down to so many people want to see the end of a story that they've invested a lot of time in and they care about a lot, and it's just not happening. George says he's working, but is he really? Again, I don't see it. I don't see where this work is on Winds of Winter. If he is doing it, I just don't see it. Like, because he's not told us anything about it, and nothing that he posts indicates he's doing it. Progress reports and wins would help so much, even if it's just 10 pages. I agree, and I think something that would really help George is if he had somebody that held him accountable. The problem is he has nobody that does that. Like, his publishers don't seem to do that. They'll just release another cookbook. They'll release some random, like, reprint, new cover, whatever, and that'll satisfy them. George has nobody that is holding him to this accountable, status of, write the book. You need to have this done by this point. He's tried to do that for himself, saying the book will be done by, X year. It just doesn't work that way. So, Winds of Winter is the GTA 6 of books. Unfortunately, we're gonna get GTA 6 before Winds of Winter. That's crazy. I do think that's good. I think if somebody like Sanderson is giving updates, it's a great idea. It's a great updates are always a good thing. I wonder if there's any POVs he hasn't even made a start on yet. I think he's probably made a start on all of them. I think that he has probably talked. I mean, I think he's at least attempted to write out the beginnings of all of them. But I do think Bran is probably the one he's probably struggled on the most. Bran, because I think Daenerys is the one that is probably the biggest struggle outside of Bran. But I think he has, worked on Daenerys. I think there's probably been the thing with Daenerys. I think that he's probably gone back and rewritten her plot line a lot of times, and that's what keeps it from progressing, in my opinion. Hi, Kara. How are you? Zeno, I got into A Song of Ice and Fire when I was 23. I'm 36 now. Wow. Maz, you don't look 36. Maz, are you actually 36? For you guys that don't know, I have an Instagram, and I see Maz's posts. He's a big lifter, man. He's got a lot of muscle. Maz, you do not look 36. There's no shot. I want to see proof. That's just not the case. If I had to predict, if you would have asked me to predict your age, I probably would have said like 27. That would have been my guess. So, you know what? You look good. You look good. Also, thank you, Dakota. Hi, Ashley. How are you? I definitely know of a few people who had been waiting on for wins for a long time, but are no longer with us. That's unfortunate. That is very unfortunate, JC. That's another thing, right? Like, I have friends that want to read A Song of Ice and Fire, but they don't want to read it if it's a story that's never going to like finish, because you don't want to get invested into it if it's never going to have a conclusion. Even though I still recommend it to everyone, I get it. Like, I don't know. It's just tough. It's tough to get into it when you look at it and you go, like why should I invest my time into something that likely is never going to be completed? Also, prayers for your sister Ashley. Hope she is doing well. I feel George acts like a part-time writer, professional writer like Stephen King do like 2,000 words a day. That's probably more than George has done since COVID. Yeah, George he hasn't written a lot for A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, that's just the case. Given the fact that the beginning of Winds of Winter is really just the epilogue to A Dance with Dragons, it's finishing up a lot of those plot lines, all that stuff. It didn't seem like it took a lot of time for George. It seems like the new stuff, the stuff that is like the new plot lines, the stuff he didn't have directly thought out, is the stuff that's taking the longest. Maz, it's a sad story you put in there about 2012 and 2013. Boy, it's a sad time. Once again, YouTube decided to scroll all the way down. I appreciate that. George has two loves in his sphere of work. Sometimes it feels like TV film takes priority over his writing. Well, remember, he was involved with TV and film. So now that he has the influence, he's trying to get more involved with that. And that's the thing that we talk about. Like, he's involved with TV and film. He's involved in gaming with things like Elden Ring. He's involved in other, book content. He has all these other obligations, whether that be to publishers, to appearances, whatever. He's getting opportunities like the Direwolf thing, or maybe it's to go out and meet somebody for, a day or something. Like, it's all this stuff that just takes up so much time away from George, who's trying to live out his best life while at the same time trying to promise Winds of Winter to the fans. And right now it's just, he's not doing it. So, yeah. Yeah, I did see that there was something that was going wrong. I don't know if it was the internet. I don't know if it was my computer. It was probably the internet more than it was my computer. Now that I've fixed my computer stuff, my computer seems fine. Also, this camera is great for recording. It's terrible for streaming. Like, the quality of the stream I do not like. But I can't do anything because the way this camera works is it has a USB that goes from the camera, that's like right there. It goes all the way over to my PC, and that's how it goes. But it can only go in like 1080p, but it doesn't look like it's 1080p. It's a whole fiasco. I got to get like a capture card or something, but that's money. And for right now, for only doing like one stream a week, it's fine. Maybe before Night of the Seven Kingdoms comes out, I'll make sure to make it look a lot better. Since I won't actually have a Night of the Seven Kingdoms reviews out, more than likely, it'll just be the streams. But we'll see. I'm a fan of the show, but never read the book. However, I'm kind of demotivated due to The Winds of Winter possibly never coming out. Do you believe it is worth the read nonetheless? Yeah, I do think so. I just talked about this, so it's interesting that you commented this. I don't know if you commented this while I was talking about that or what, but I think that it is some of the best writing in fantasy. I have all 5 of these books. If you ask me my top 10 books, they would all be in there. Fire and Blood would be in there. I really feel like almost all these books would be. And Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Fire and Blood, I think all of them would probably be in my top 10. Maybe not, because the Lord of the Rings books would be in there. There's some, yeah, they're all in my top 20. Okay, let's put it that way. But I think some of the best writing ever is in these books. So I think that yes, they are worth the read, albeit you're gonna want Winds of Winter after finishing A Dance with Dragons, and yeah. In July 2026, it will have taken George R. R. Martin longer on wins than the rest of the series combined. Yeah, I just thought about that. That's crazy to think about because the first book came out in 1996, I believe. Game of Thrones was 96, Clash of Kings was 98, Storm of Swords was 2000, I believe. Crazy. Storm of Swords came out on my birth year. That's kind of crazy. And then Feast for Crows came out in 2005, I think, and then Dance came out in 2011. So yeah, that is pretty crazy to think about. Side note, I have no issues with Dragon and Mans, but I think the launch of HBO streaming in EU is just a convenient excuse for them, and the real reason they pushed Dunk and Egg was because House of the Dragon is far off. Again, I think you go back to my video that I made on A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and it getting delayed. I don't really feel like I got to talk about everything I wanted to talk about in the video that we did that collab. But my main thoughts are it could be any of those things that you're talking about. Like it could be them combined as well. Like so HBO, the launch, maybe that pushed back Dunk and Egg. It could also be they want to give more time to House of the Dragon, so this allows them to do that, right? Pushing back Night of the Seven Kingdoms kind of would give them excuse then and push back House of the Dragon. I could see that all being, very relevant. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's anything like a shot at Dragon Man's or anything. It's just that's his opinion. That's his opinion, what he thinks is going to happen, and everybody is allowed to have their own. If you read First Law, it's a good series, but definitely no Song of Ice and Fire. Well, nothing's going to be a Song of Ice and Fire. I don't really try to read books that way, like, because I don't think anything is going to compare, usually. That's why they're, like, as famous as they are. But, yeah. I get that a lot. This dude thought I was 28 last week. Yeah, that's what I would have thought you were. You look good. 30 is the new 20, Grease. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Maz is a muscle mommy confirmed 100%. Yes, Maz is not like I wouldn't say like Maz is like he's super young. Like he like the way I'm like I don't want it to sound like I'm saying Maz looks like, young teenager or anything, but he looks like he looks like he's like my age. Like I don't know. Honestly, being single with no kids helps. Hey, alleviates probably a lot of stress. Also, hi, David. I saw that as it decided to go all the way down. But that's pretty cool. I've always wanted to go to Brazil. So, yeah. Also, just for people in the chat, What countries are you from? I'm always interested. I haven't looked at my like analytics for like where like what countries watch me the most and stuff like that in a while. I'm always curious to see where people like are from or where they're tuning in from. Obviously, most of you are from the United States, but yeah. Um Tell your friends to read it anyway, even unfinished. It's such a great story and so much better than the show. I hesitated to read it too because it wasn't finished, but now I'm so glad that I did. Like, I tell my friends that. It's just, I totally get not wanting to get like all that investment into it. Like, these are large books, these are not Lord of the Rings. Like, Game of Thrones is the size of almost all three of the Lord of the Ring books. So, you know. I feel like if George just sat down and focused for 6 months, he would be able to finish. The problem is to get in the flow, he would have to power through at least a month of catching up with the plot. Agreed. I agree, David. No problem, Ashley. Thank you for the super chat. Let me see what it says. Love your videos. Rank the actors of these characters and how well they embodied them from the books. So okay, so Tyrion, Jon, Daenerys, Arya, and Sansa. Ooh. I would say. Ooh, that's a really tough question. I would say, surprisingly, I would say Arya. Yeah, I think Maisie Williams does a really good job of Arya in terms of what I think the character of Arya is. Now that the changes to the like the actual character are the show made, but I think Maisie Williams' performance of the book Arya is probably the best. Um, I think that Sophie Turner does a pretty good job as Sansa. I'd probably go hers too. Like, kind of 1-to-1 feels like the Sansa from the book as well. 3, it's so tough because the thing is, Peter Dinklage is a great actor, but the Tyrion of the show is not the Tyrion of the book. And a lot of that's the writing. A lot of it is the way that Tyrion, Peter Dinklage is a very like handsome guy. That is not Tyrion of the book at all. So it's like Tyrion doesn't look like Tyrion is in the show. They're two distinctive characters, so that kind of hurts where I'd put Tyrion. I'd probably say Emilia Clarke third. I think especially as the show progressed, she definitely started hitting her strides. The problem once again is that Daenerys in the book is much younger. So tough. Like I think Arya and Sansa, like Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, are easily 1 and 2. But then after that, you can make an argument. I think Kit Harington is last, just because the Jon Snow of the show does not remind me of the book at all. They're like really different, and then I don't think Kit Harington was like all that great in the role as Jon. Like, I think his best moments is when he's with characters like Ygritte. Like, there was actually that chemistry there. You saw a little bit of like the actual Jon of the book. So I'm gonna say Daenerys. I'm gonna say Emilia Clarke 3, Peter Dinklage 4, and then Kit Harington 5. That'd be my ranking. I love to see chat's ranking. Thank you for the super chat, James. That was a very tough question. Like, that was a very tough question. I tried to give my best answer on that. But I agree, Violet, on your sentiment about the gardening style. I agree, abandon all hope. I do agree. I think that is a big reason why people are kind of frustrated with him. Thank you, Dakota, for gifting memberships. You sent 5 gifted God damn, Dakota, save your birthday money. But I appreciate that. Welcome, new members. You do get videos early and all that. I used to do a member video, but I stopped promising that because it just wasn't feasible. And I kind of just felt like there wasn't enough to talk about to make a video on it. But I hope you guys all enjoy being members and all that stuff. Especially now, because I'm getting videos out really early. You guys actually get those very early now. Ricky hasn't read the books, or he'd be more sympathetic to the phrase. You want to know what a thought I had, Dakota? So I was getting done from doing my walk at the park, and like I was kind of like thinking about the phrase, and I was like thinking about it. I'm like, the phrase, they kind of get like shit on. And so you understand why. Like, this is where the whole Walder Frey origin story that I put in Discord chat spawned from. Because I was sitting here, I'm like, everybody hates the phrase like right off the bat. And a lot of it just comes from, the phrase are more rich than everybody else because they hold a very key position. It's like you could have done that at any point and none of you did. So like the phrase might do some questionable actions, but I'm just saying like they were not treated well at all. So I don't know. Um, Maybe July 2026 is the year for Winds of Winter. Mayhaps, mayhaps. I have not seen Sinners, Ashley. Oh my God! Stop, YouTube! You gotta stop. You gotta stop going down. Also, Zeno, welcome back. I thought Zeno you were a member for a while, so welcome back. JC is now a member. Cannibal is now a member. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that name. I'm gonna call you Crown, unless you'd like me to learn how to pronounce your name. Welcome. Welcome Fizzle. A lot of people that had memberships before that are now members again. So, welcome back. Also, Matt's that's pretty cool. I have a friend that loves Norway. He thought he was Norwegian, I should say. He did a DNA test. He turned out to not be that at all. I thought I was going to be very like maybe, Mediterranean. I was not at all. I was very much German and British. So, yeah. An honest day in the life of George would be wild. Maybe I should like ask George, can I do a YouTube video of just a day in the life of George? I'll bring my camera. And we'll figure it out. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool thing. You know what I would love to see George respond to that we've never seen him respond to. He didn't respond to it in this video or in his blog post either. What is George's thoughts on splitting the book? Like, I don't know if he's ever answered that question. I'd be really interested to see what he says about that. Even if George finishes Wins, I don't see how the story can be wrapped up in just one more book. A Time for Wolves needs to happen to give the series the proper and epic send-off that it needs. I agree, Wolfheart, 100%. I think an extra book would really help him. I don't understand why they pushed the gullet to next season because now it's going to cost even more money than it's already would. I think the reason it's delayed is HBO doesn't want to spend money. Very easily could see that. I think HBO is just not a well-run company, which is why I kind of chalked up some of the Night of the Seven Kingdoms stuff, why it was pushed back, to incompetence. You want House of the Dragon to do as best as it possibly can. So if you're HBO, you should be sitting here going, yeah, let's make sure it has its big battle episode that everybody wants to see, that is like the climax of the season, and that they moved it to season 3. Like, HBO, I don't know. In terms of A Song of Ice and Fire media, HBO is not well versed. Is a stream buffering for anybody else? I hope, I keep seeing it popping up. I hope it's not too bad. It's probably just my internet. I don't know. Internet is, I don't know. Also, cool, Kara. Baltimore. Do you like the Baltimore Ravens, Kara? Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about Brazil having a lot of snakes. I'm a real big snake hater. I'm tuning in from Sunspear, JC. Ariana's there. Well, she was there. So I envy you. I envy you that. The UK, yeah. I know I have a lot of people that watch from the UK, the United States, and Canada. I think those are like the main 3. I do want to go to the UK too as well. I do want to go there. Where's the okay? So I gotta fix the stream elements. I haven't looked at my stream elements in literally probably a year. So I'll fix it, Dakota. I'll fix it. Wait, hold on. I was gonna see if I could just play it for you, but I don't know. Did they not read what they were adapted? So many dragons and battles at the height of the Targaryen stuff. They should have chosen a different time period if they didn't want to spend all that money. HBO is incompetent. Comes all with that. Start with the audiobooks. I do like the audiobooks. The audiobooks are really good, especially for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. My first read of it was through the audiobook. Harry Lloyd does A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. He is fantastic. We need more stuff with Harry Lloyd in it. Also, it's crazy, Dakota, that you didn't gift Ashley a membership. You didn't gift your wife a membership. That's kind of crazy to me. I know it's random, like you can't choose who you gift memberships to, but that's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. If I was Ashley, I would be a little offended. Tyrion was whitewashed. Yeah, he's not the Tyrion of the show or the book, I should say. Um, I just read Dakota's comment. No, why did Advocate get a membership? I want my money back. JC's already got premium access to Greece. They do videos and stuff together. Now he's got a membership. It's not fair. Greece, a good vid could be show and book character differences. So I've kind of started doing that. I did the Arya like 2-part video thing that I enjoyed doing. I did the Varys thing. I'll probably gonna do another one maybe for next week. Probably I might. I liked doing the battle, doing the battle for the wall, which was like a 2. Actually, I still got to do one more part for the wall actually. So next week might be the finale for the wall stuff with Stannis, and then maybe we'll do a character thing. Imagine the show. Okay, I saw it, and then it decided to scroll all the way to the bottom again. Hold on. We're almost there. We're almost there. Imagine the show showing Tyrion post Tywin's death and the Tysha reveal. It will get dark very quick. I'm 29. I didn't get my birthday money. Yes, you did. Somebody in your family gave you some birthday money. Somebody. Yeah, Ashley. I think Kit Harington definitely was his best with Rose, and that makes sense given that they got married. So you know. Charles Dance is 1-to-1 with Tywin. Agreed. Charles Dance just is Tywin, 100%. The only thing I'll say about Jaime's depiction in the show, like Jaime like loses his like blonde gold hair throughout the show, and it's very jarring to me. But yeah. David Bradley as well is very good. I think they changed Tyrion, taking away some of the darkness that came after the missing Tysha reveal because he was a fan favorite, and they wanted to make him more of a good guy. Agreed. Like, and that's what's so weird is like they took out a lot of the morally gray stuff for like the main 3, Jon, Tyrion, and Dany. They took out a lot of their morally like questionable stuff, more Jon and Tyrion than Daenerys. But yeah, I agree. Do you think Winds will ever come out? Yes, I think we'll get Winds of Winter. I think that if we don't get it like completed, we'll get what he has written. So, I don't remember how old Marjorie is in the books, so JC, I'd be careful. Hold on. Let's just do a search because I'm interested. Marjorie Tyrell. Chat probably is already gonna know the answer before I even look this up, but I want to know myself. I just want to know. I want to know. Okay. So she is 16 years old in the main series. We got JC again. We got him again. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. All right, guys. Also, I hear family coming over upstairs, so I may have to hop off the stream here in a second. God, you guys talked a lot, but I will say we caught JC in 4K again. I do think that Danny needs 3 books, 100%. Hi, Radical. How are you? I definitely get that, Radical. I'm trying my best to like keep up with you guys, but I've fallen behind, and I think I need to, you know. Also, congrats, Radical, in graduating soon. Dakota, you're right. All right. I think that's where I'm going to end the stream, guys. I hope you all I don't know if you could say you enjoyed. It was pretty bad news. Sorry if I didn't get to everybody's comments. There's just a lot going on. But I'll see you guys all in the next one. I think again. Okay, I just saw what Dakota put in the chat. Okay, let's continue. That threw me off. But yeah. What was I gonna say? It's been continued worst year of A Song of Ice and Fire, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.